here we are with Christopher Gortner, who loves to take characters that are, let's say, maligned in history and lets us see a whole different dimension to them. So, Christopher, your latest wonderful character is Catherine de Medici.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to know, I know there's wonderful history in there, but what I want to know is, what are the salacious parts of the story of Catherine and her family?
What's interesting thing about Catherine de Medici is this love triangle that she starts out with. She's married really young to this guy that's around the same age. So you think they're going to have this wonderful relationship, even though it's a political marriage. They're the same age. Hormones are raging. But he's in love with this older woman. So throughout her entire relationship with her husband, she's living in the shadow of this mistress. And there's this big legend about why she didn't have kids for 10 years. And there's been all sorts of theories about why she didn't have children. Anything from her hymen was too thick till he had an oddly shaped member. But it's interesting to look at it and realize that it was probably because the mistress was keeping him from going to bed with her to be able to control the relationship. So I've always found that really a fascinating aspect of Catherine's life, that throughout this entire married life that she had, 20-odd years of marriage, she lived it basically in a threesome with this other mistress right in front of her.
And when Christopher says a threesome, what you have to realize is...
I mean it literally.
Literally. We won't tell you anything more than that. You have to read the book, but literally...
Literally, it's a threesome. I mean, she wasn't just, in the hall. She's in the bedroom.
Yeah.
And then, she has these, these insane children. She has these kids that all of them have very strange quirks. The daughter Margot was, she's come across as Dumas' sort of heroine, but really what we have is a girl who was basically a nymphomaniac, who was running around court sleeping with a number of men and plotting revenge, and was caught by her own brothers having sex a couple days before she was due to be married to the Prince of Navarre with the Duc de Guise, and was beaten by her children, by her brothers, with Catherine trying to stop them.
And that's actually what happened in history, is that right? It
actually happened in history.
Wow.
Margot was so angry at this marriage being planned for her, and she had been in love with the Duc de Guise, that she tried to give herself to Guise first, in the hopes of thwarting the marriage. If she had gotten herself pregnant, it would have been, an awkward situation at best with the Prince of Navarre. So, and then you have, her son Charles, who is generally recognized as having sort of a bloodlust. He was sort of obsessed with the hunt and sort of obsessed with things that were kind of nasty. I mean, he seemed kind of obsessed with blood and hunting, and he had a mistress on the side, and that's all kind of strange. And then you have her, her son Henri, her favorite, who was openly gay in a period of history where, it really wasn't accepted to be openly gay. But this man, he had lovers. His lovers were known as the mignons, and he walked around court with his lovers, and they fought duels amongst themselves, and he never hid his preference for men at court. So she has this fascinating, complex, dysfunctional family that's very modern in many ways.
Yeah. I mean, we think some of our people, celebrities, are messed up, but I think Catherine's family beats them all.
Absolutely. It's what makes history so much fun, is that really when you start digging underneath the surface of what's recorded, these are human beings like you and I, with all kinds of problems and family relationships and family dynamics that are complex.
Yeah.
Makes it a lot of fun.
Yeah. It seems like you tend to gravitate towards those kinds of characters.
I tend to like the women in history that have the dark legends attached to them. I mean, Catherine's known as a poisoner, she's known as an evil schemer, she's always in black, sort of huddling around court like a black spider. I always think, wow, someone who's, this nasty, she's got to be fun to write about. I'm not really interested in people that are really good, and I want the complex women. Juana, the same thing. I mean, she dragged a coffin around with her. There's got to be a great story there.
Yeah.
And that's what I tend to want to go for.
Yeah. I love, with Juana, there's that amazing scene down in the banquet, isn't there? Or?
Oh, yes, when she comes downstairs. Juana refused to go into confinement. Women would go into confinement several weeks before pregnancy. It was just an accepted sort of custom, and they went into a room that was shuttered. It was only with women. Juana refused. She wanted to see her husband Philip when he came back from a trip, and so she waited till the last minute. She was literally at the last minute, and she went downstairs to dance. And she was so flaunting of her customs that she actually went into labor while she was dancing and couldn't get back to the birthing chamber in time, and ended up having the future Charles V in a guard robe, which would be, an equivalent, a modern-day equivalent of our toilet. So Charles V was born in a toilet. which is just fascinating to know. And according to the history, Juana was so hardy in constitution that she had this baby, and sort of the umbilical cord was cut, and it was all taken care of, and she put her dress back on, and she went right back downstairs to the banquet. Yes.
Really?
Absolutely.
Oh, that's insane. Well, you know, people think she was, so...
There you go.
That works.
There you go. It works just perfect at the time. But it's interesting that you say that, because it sort of makes us understand why some of these people get these legends in history. That people in that time would have said, wow, that's insane. It wasn't really literally insane, but maybe that's how it all started. You know, this was a woman who refused to go into confinement. She had her kid in a toilet because she didn't make it in time, and then she went right back down to dance.
In a sense, both of these women are women who didn't conform to, historically in those times, what women should be doing.
Exactly. They flaunted their customs. They flaunted what was accepted of women at that time. Catherine would have been expected, when her husband died, to have taken an early retirement and gone and grown vegetables. And she decided to stay, fight for underage children, and rule France, and exercise power in a country where she was still considered by most people as a foreigner, of Italian birth, the foreign bride of a French king. And she refused to let that stop her from exercising power and protecting her kids. It makes for wonderful storytelling.
Yeah.
You know, makes her a fascinating character.
Yeah. I mean, she's Catherine de Medici. She's not Queen Catherine.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Still known by her Italian name, isn't that?
Yeah.
In Spain, in French, it's Catherine de Medicis too. They actually make her of the Medici family. I mean, they make a point of pointing out, you know,
she's not one of us.
She's not one of us. And yet she shaped so much of France and forestalled the revolution by 200 years. If she hadn't been behind the throne, the nobility would have overthrown it at that particular point in history, because the religious wars were so intense. So this is, you know, this is an amazingly strong character, but definitely one who flouted convention. You know, who decided to do what she wanted to do when she wanted to do it.
And could you give us a peek as to what other female character you're thinking of doing next?
Isabella. I'm going to do Queen Isabella of Castile next. And even though she seems on the surface to sort of be a righteous character who did everything in line, this is another woman who sort of went against the grain. Spain had never had a successful queen before on her own terms that wasn't a woman who was ruling for an underage son, or, you know, a woman who had inherited the throne and had to fight brothers for it. She came to the throne through a series of misfortunes. She went to battle at a time when women didn't go to battle, which I find so fascinating. She chose the man she wanted to marry and flouted all kinds of conventions for that. I mean, she had a lot of opposition to marrying Fernando, so much so that he had to come across Castile in secret at night, dressed as a muleteer, so they could be wed. It was a secret marriage.
Well, sounds like you're on fire with that one, too.
Yeah, this is my new thing. And she's just an amazing character who, again, you know, she sort of defies what the legend has come around about her. She's a lot more complex, she's a lot more fallible, she's a lot more human. It makes her incredibly fascinating to write about.
Great, great. Well, thank you.
You're very welcome.
This is wonderful.